Environmental guidelines and standards are rules, regulations, and policies designed to protect the environment, promote sustainability, and minimize negative impacts on the ecosystem. They are typically developed by government agencies, international organizations, and industry groups to establish minimum environmental protection and sustainability requirements. The purpose of environmental guidelines and standards is to provide a framework for responsible and sustainable practices. These guidelines and standards address various environmental issues, including air quality, water quality, waste management, land use, biodiversity, and energy conservation. They help ensure that businesses and individuals take environmentally responsible and sustainable actions. Environmental guidelines and standards typically take the form of laws, regulations, codes of conduct, and voluntary initiatives. They may be mandatory or voluntary, depending on the organization or industry that they apply to. Government agencies typically enforce mandatory guidelines and standards, while businesses and other organizations adopt voluntary initiatives to demonstrate their commitment to sustainability. One example of an environmental guideline is the Environmental Protection Agency's (EPA) National Ambient Air Quality Standards. These standards limit the concentration of pollutants in the air, such as sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, and ozone. The NAAQS protect public health and welfare by ensuring that the air we breathe is clean and healthy. Another example of an environmental guideline is the ISO 14001 standard for environmental management systems. This standard provides a framework for businesses and organizations to manage their environmental impacts systematically and sustainably. The ISO 14001 standard requires organizations to establish and maintain an EMS. That includes environmental management policies, procedures, and performance metrics. In addition to guidelines and standards established by government agencies and international organizations, industry-specific standards and codes of conduct exist. For example, the Forest Stewardship Council has set standards for responsible forest management. These standards provide a framework for ensuring that forests are managed in an environmentally responsible, socially beneficial, and economically viable way. Another example of an industry-specific standard is the Marine Stewardship Council certification for sustainable fishing. This certification provides a means for consumers to identify seafood products that have been harvested in a sustainable and environmentally responsible way. The MSC certification requires that fisheries meet a set of standards for sustainability, including limits on fishing quotas, protection of marine ecosystems, and responsible fishing practices. Environmental guidelines and standards are essential for several reasons. They help protect the environment and promote sustainability by establishing minimum environmental protection and conservation requirements. They provide a framework for businesses and organizations to manage their environmental impacts systematically and sustainably. They provide consumers with information about the environmental impact of products and services, allowing them to make more informed choices. However, environmental guidelines and standards have their limitations. One of the main challenges is enforcement. While government agencies typically enforce mandatory guidelines and standards, compliance with voluntary initiatives is often self-reported and difficult to verify. This can lead to a lack of accountability and inconsistency in environmental performance across different organizations and industries. Another challenge is the complexity of environmental issues. Environmental problems are often interconnected and require a holistic approach to address. More than guidelines and standards that focus on specific environmental issues may be necessary to address the broader challenges of sustainability and environmental protection. In conclusion, environmental guidelines and standards are critical for promoting sustainability and protecting the environment. They provide a framework for responsible and sustainable practices and help ensure that businesses and individuals take environmentally responsible actions. While there are challenges to implementing and enforcing guidelines and standards, they remain an essential tool for addressing environmental issues and promoting sustainability.